This video is about insomnia. So now, if I remember correctly, it was like 2011. And I, 2010, I had a great job. Like, if not my favorite, best job, up there, top three, definitely. It was a great job. And the recession hit 2008. People were getting laid off. I did whatever it took to keep this job. Like what do you need me to do? Like, what can I do? And I learned all this stuff, and it was amazing because I was growing and learning crazy, great stuff that I've used throughout my career. But eventually, the company succumbed to the recession and the bankruptcy. So there I was without a job. And the recession was still going, so hiring was not there. And so I was unemployed for a year, close to a year. And so I finally got a job. I'm not gonna say where because, again, that's not the purpose of this video. But what I will say is that I was at a call center, and it was a lot of me telling people bad news. And it was the worst job that I've ever had. Yeah, definitely. Because that's not in my spirit. You have to be a special person to be able to do that every single day. And one positive that I have of it is that I have a new respect for people who work at call centers, especially government employees, and when you're dealing with the utilities. Yeah, it's a hard job. And I remember it was January, I think January of 2011. It got to the point where I wasn't sleeping at all. And I remember keeping a log because I scheduled an appointment with my doctor, and that was like a few weeks away. So I kept a log of when I went to sleep and when I woke up, and and it was like the same thing. I would go to bed and maybe sleep half an hour, 15 minutes, an hour, and then wake up and then spend hours trying to get back to sleep. And then I would, and then wake up again. And it got to the point where it was like 3 hours a week. And I really I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even think. Everything was cloudy. I couldn't function, And luckily I had a job where, the call center where you're sitting down all the time, because I really could not walk. Like, it really got that bad. And so I finally go to the doctor, and he gave me Ambien. And I will say that helped me out a lot as far as just letting me go to sleep and stay asleep. It really helped. I'm so glad that I went to the doctor. But more than just the medicine that he gave to me was that he was just, just my general doctor. But he's like, hey, have you ever, what's happening in your mind? It's definitely something that's on your mind. And I thought, well, I think I'm doing okay. Like, I was unemployed, but I have a job now, and so that's good. And it's not my favorite job, but it's still a job, and the pay was pretty decent actually. So to me, on the surface, because I bury stuff, I'm like, everything's okay. I mean, it's okay. And he's like, well, okay. He's asking me about my family, my home, and stuff like that. And I mentioned that I had a dog, and he's like, oh, what do you mean you had? And I'm like, oh, well, we had to put him down like maybe 6 months ago. And I started talking about my job and the job I had before. And he goes, okay, so that job you had, that great job you had before, were you depressed when you lost a job? And I thought, no, I didn't have time to be depressed, because I'm not the person who cannot work. I have to work. I have to keep myself busy and doing stuff. So as soon as I lost that job, I was on it plus with the recession, I was on it to try and find another job as quickly as possible. And He's like, so you never, it's a loss, especially if it's a great job that you loved. When you lose that job, it's a loss, and you have to grieve it. You have to acknowledge it. And how did you feel about being unemployed for a year? Like, that was awful. Like, every day it killed me. It killed me, not being productive and not having money to contribute, just. And he goes, okay, and then your dog died? Yeah, then that happened. And so did you, I told him the story, and he's like, well, I don't remember you saying that you cried at the vet. I'm like, I didn't, because my partner was a wreck. And so at that point, I had to be strong. I had to be the strong one. And he goes, have you cried since then? No. And that's when it started hitting me, because I love that dog. We had him for 12 years, and he was like our baby. And I never cried. And then now you're at this job where it's stressful, and you don't like this job. So for you to think that, to not know why you can't go to sleep, there's issues that you have to deal with. And, he told me to see someone, to talk to someone about it. And at the time, I'm going to be honest with you, I grew up in the Bronx, a Puerto Rican household where it's not something that you read about therapy and all that stuff, but you don't think that applies to you. And, it's like, that's not your world. That's someone else's world. So regrettably, it took years for me to actually go see a therapist, but it did help me. That conversation with him did help me in a lot of ways. I don't know if it was that night or the night after, but I actually did think about that job, and I called my old boss, and we just spoke about it. And she was sad too, and we had a moment that we never had. And I thought about my dog, and I cried. And I didn't accept. I realized that my current job wasn't the job for me. And so I wasn't going to accept that, and I was going to look for another job. And so that gave me the drive to leave that job, and I did like a month later. So just from that one conversation, and again, that's why I say talk to someone, because it does help, even if you don't. It's not going to be like a light bulb. Sometimes it's not that quick, but sometimes it's going to warm up, and the way you think, that's going to change, and your eyes are going to be open, and you're going to remember things, and you're going to process things differently. So that's my advice to you as far as with stuff like that. If maybe you're going through a similar situation where you can't go to sleep, and maybe you're just not addressing. Maybe you have to go back then more than just a month. Go back 6 months. Go back a year, 2 years. And did you if anything bad or sad happened, did you process that, or did you just do what I do and just bury it? Because you can't do that. It's gonna affect you. That's what I know that now. Being the person who buries stuff in, eventually it's going to come out, and it's gonna affect you, and it's affecting you mentally, even though you don't realize it the entire time. But eventually, it'll also affect you physically, and then you can't run. And it's better to deal with it while it's as soon as it's happening, or as soon as it's happened, than waiting years later to where the damage is done. And now you're not just addressing that incident, but addressing all the mess that's happened because of that incident. So that's my advice to you. Talk to someone, even if it's your doctor, even if it's a friend. Just say what's on your mind, process it, and think about it. Don't bury stuff. Okay, I hope you like and subscribe. More importantly, comment. Let me know if you've been through something similar. Let me know what happened to you. Like, are you still going through it? Did you figure out your own process to help you out? Let me know. I still might be dealing with the residuals of that. So maybe you'll help me. Maybe you'll help someone else who's watching this. Thanks. Bye.